and welcome to Steven University. This week we are discussing Island Adventure, an episode in which Steven discovers a mysterious island. It's an island that, and this isn't really relevant, but it does actually get a name in a later episode, Mask Island. It's not actually that relevant, but it's just, for the sake of this discussion, Chris, we have a name for it.
Cool.
So the island's called Mask Island. So basically Steven visits there with the gems looking for something. He then discovers, or learns, I suppose, through practice or giving it a go, that he's actually also able to warp with the warp pad. Then he comes across Sadie and Lars, who are having a bit of a fight, and he decides to bring them to the island to get away from it all and chill out and maybe sort of get on better terms with each other. It all goes a bit pear-shaped, though, when they think they're lost. Turns out Sadie was just hiding the warp pad because she wanted to spend more time with Lars. He's all mad at her. And then she goes all predator and fights the monster that shows up. And gets a little scar on her face, which, from what I can tell, for at least a good while, that scar does not go away for
really?
A long time, if ever, to be honest with you.
Wow.
The trivia on the Wikipedia page for the episode suggests it never goes away, but I'm fairly confident at a certain point. But it's very faint. It's like a faint pink line after a little while, like a scar. But it's really cool that they've kept that as part of like her look. But yeah, so that's the basic premise of the episode. It's got a lovely song in the middle. Chris, what did we think?
Do these kids not have parents?
Yeah.
Wondering where the fuck they are?
Well,
but, you know.
Again, in terms of trivia, just for the context of the discussion, Chris, this based on the day-night time cycle we see pass, it is roughly 10 days they are away.
So you'd think someone would say, "Hey, where are you guys?"
Well, yeah, but what would they be able to do? They wouldn't know where they were.
Yeah, true. I suppose it's a dark plot to keep cutting back to worried parents.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of dark shit in this episode, full stop. But
well, there's also, because I'm like, hey, when are these guys just gonna get on it and smooch? And in my head, I'm like, well, they're never gonna. It's a kids' animated show. They're unlikely to do that. Nope. They do it. Fair play.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite ballsy, personally. I don't know.
Well,
in the context
you
of...
and some other countries, because this episode is one of the most heavily edited when it airs internationally. Often the kiss and some of the violence towards the end is removed.
Wow. Really?
Mm-hmm.
It is quite it's not a kiss. It's a snog. Like, it is a full-on snog.
And there's like it's soppier than it needs to be because there's tears and it's all a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It is an oddly graphic kiss for a kids show.
Yeah, it ain't a peck. Put it that way. No, it's a little bit more passionate than that. That's for sure.
But fair play. I think that's a good thing. I'm all for that.
I'm on board too. 100%.
It's a pet peeve of mine, and I make a point of every play I've written has included multiple kisses, because I hate going to see amateur drama. And I saw a scene where a couple were had to kiss, fall down on the bed, and then fondle each other, and then they get interrupted. And it was all done without actual kissing, and it's just like rubbing necks. It's just awful. So I'm all for if a scene merits a proper kiss, actually do it. And this is just the same. I was pleased to see that. I think the episode is a great character study on Sadie. Mm-hmm. Yes. I think it's interesting because you every time you have seen Sadie, even with the episode where Lars accidentally eats the really hot stuff.
Not accidentally. She does. That's her revenge, isn't it? After.
Yes, but Steven is the reason there's Steven's responsible for there being the hot thing and an excessive amount of it as well. I think, but so you're still kind of on Sadie's side. This episode, there's a point where you're really like, oh man, I think Sadie cocked up here. Sadie shouldn't have done that. And you feel for Lars, and it's quite weird because you're like, oh, I'm not used to. Yeah, because
historically, she's been sort of into him, and he's been ignoring her and rude and not on board, and you sort of. You feel like you're on, if anyone's side, Sadie's, and then of course in this episode it sort of flips, and you sort of feel it from her perspective too, his perspective too. And let's be honest, what Sadie should have done is admit what she'd done or taken them back to the warp pad. The second Steven said, "Well, we came to look for a dangerous gem creature that we never found here."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the moment you go, we probably shouldn't be here. Dangerous gem creature afoot. But there you go.
How much do Lars and Sadie become a couple to get invested in?
I think that would be spoiler territory. We'll have to...
Because at the moment, I'm more invested in them than I am Connie and Stephen.
Do you see Connie and Stephen as a couple in the making thing?
Potentially, but then part of me goes, there's been no real evidence for that. So I don't want to be that guy. I mean, it's like, they can't just be friends.
Well, that's the thing, is when I was at this stage of the show, I was waiting to see the next move with Connie and Stephen. Because it's either it becomes a very, very good friendship, or it becomes a love story, and until you get the next piece, it's hard to see which road you're going down of those two. So I didn't think either way was necessarily a certainty at this point.
No,
Sadie and Lars,
which is probably why I'm more invested in Sadie and Lars.
Oh, 100% why. Where they're actually like playing on that. It's interesting because I do think I don't know if. Well, see, I can't even say that without that being a spoiler. So from my perspective at this stage, I would have imagined them to be going forward, sort of more of a thing quickly, because this feels like a big step that you can't really, pull a car around and reverse out of. Do you know what I mean? Whether they do or don't, I will leave to the show. Yeah. To reveal in time, but I think they're look. The thing is, they're an interesting couple because I think a lot of the times on TV shows, it's very tempting when you do a love story to have two people that are very much on the same page. The idea that there is an affection between these two, but it's more about, and this is so human and so realistic because in TV shows, two people like they're into each other, and like sometimes, not always, sometimes people are just on the same page, but sometimes their actual sort of more outward personalities clash a bit, even though their deeper sort of feelings for each other are a little bit more in line. So, for example, Lars, who we've established in the past, is very much, he wants to be in with the cool kids. He wants to be a certain way, and he's forcing that more often than not. I feel like he's often not being himself. And Sadie says it, doesn't she, when they first get to the island? He's being a little bit rough right now, but he'll soften up. And I think what's interesting about this is it's his external personality clashes with Sadie, but I think his deeper nature is much more someone you would imagine sort of falling for her. So seeing them in this situation where his pretense eventually dropped, and that's how it played out, was fascinating and a really clever way to do it, and also a very, very, very good, as you point out, a character study, and a really interesting one at that, and also quite a complex one for a kids show. Again, yeah,
I was gonna say for this
is
more because you also have him then, but he, even though he feels that way, he is also still homesick and on his phone and stuff. But then it's not that he's missing the cool kids. He's literally missing home, and he's scared. This is a more layered relationship than a lot of other shows. Like this is more layered at this stage than Olivia and Peter were in Fringe, like 3 seasons in.
And that show at that point would have had 50 episodes or each 40 odd minutes to establish it. We've watched 30 episodes at 11 minutes long, and these two characters hardly ever show up.
Yeah, exactly. They're not even main characters.
No, they show up.
I
once
thought
every
another
sort of 4 or 5 episodes.
Another interesting thing I want to touch on before we go is I thought it was interesting how they've not really, although they've shown that the inhabitants of the town are aware of the gem stuff and know their gems and know there's powers and know there's weirdness. I thought this was a real sign of, for me at least, of just how much they know, or just how much they're used to it, because Sadie or Lars they react to the island and react to the things, but they don't react to the fact that Stephen is able to transport them there.
Yeah.
And they don't go, what is a gem?
Well,
they seem to have a real knowledge.
I don't remember the exact quote, but when the ocean disappears and Mayor Dewey's just on the beach, like, we're ruined. And then he's like, look, it's those 3 magical ladies. They can help us. Like, there is a natural awareness in the town of something weird going on. But people, I think, a little bit just a little bit, choose to ignore it because it is,
Because the rent's so cheap is my only assumption. Because shit can go down at any moment.
Yeah.
So the house prices are low.
They must be. Oh yeah, they must. It must the lowest possible house prices. Because how else are you doing it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I think that this is a really good one, and I will say as well, I really love the monster, love the invisible gem thing, and I love. It's annoying because I swear to God, when I was about 15, I wrote a script about creatures that were invisible, and I did this exact scene where it starts to rain and you can see its outline. So it was a bit like, oh, someone got there. But the idea is still very innovative. It is really cool to see it.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
At first, you just see the gem floating about, but you can hear it, and you see the footprints, and you sort of get impressions of its existence, and its weight, and its size, and its scariness. And then when it starts to rain, you see its outline, and you realize how big it is, and how intimidating it seems. And then seeing Sadie get all badass as well, or Predator on that thing, like war paint and all. It's genuinely very good.
Sadie helping Steven capture it opens up so many possibilities for the show going forward. The idea that you could have someone who wasn't a gem getting this mixed up in an adventure and helping to this degree is just really cool.
Yeah, and I will say as well, it's cool because when she drives the sort of thing into it, she sort of poofs it. You know the way that when Pearl got stabbed, she went back into her gem. Again, we're talking about like there's a consistency to it. The rules are very straightforward. They seem complicated on the surface when you first get to start watching the show, but actually the logic of how these gems work is actually really, really quite clear. So yeah, that's really cool. And then of course Stephen bubbles it because that's what you do. So he sort of, in a weird way, he was left to solve that problem on his own. The gems without the gems' help. Yeah. What did you think to the song and the montage? Because one of my favorite parts of this episode, and maybe even the show, I really love that montage, and that it ends with them sort of spooning, with Stephen the third spoon and then rolling away. The song is really sweet, the lyrics are very poignant, and I think the visuals are beautiful. But what did you think to that?
I've got the same opinion. I mean, there's an element, I think, I'm not at this stage as invested in the musical moments as you are. But so I'm not. It's not like the only song that's stuck in my head is Giant Woman, and so I thought, but I thought it was great. I didn't dislike it. I was just like, oh, cool. Like you say, I thought it was very sweet. I thought the song was as sweet as all the others have been. And I did love the spooning thing. That was great.
I also loved it's quite a sweet song. Every now and then they'd cut to like a really violent image of them fighting fish.
Yeah, and fish that looked like weird alien fish. So I was like, would I eat that? Probably not. And I thought that for an 11-minute show and a montage within an 11-minute show, they still built up Lars slowly coming round very nicely.
Yeah, and I think the lyrics in that song are really clever and indicative of that as well. Because I don't know how much attention you're necessarily paying to the lyrics, but the main premise is be wherever you are, which is just wherever you've ended up, go with that. Don't like Lars is being, so it's go with it, and you'll have more fun. Do you know what I mean? Rather than longing for the other thing that you might have had or didn't have or whatever. It's sort of weirdly a song about regret and trying to get away from running away from life rather than living it. But the last version of the line, instead of saying be wherever you are, he says be whoever you are. And I think that's nice. Also really brilliant and clever because Lars has obviously often put on this not fictional, but this sort of like pretense. There's a pretense to a lot of what Lars does. And we've had enough hints at this point to know that he's actually one of the more complicated characters on the show. Because despite that, how he acts, that's not always how he feels. And be whoever you are, combined with the be wherever you are message, is actually really beautiful and very well done. And it also shows either complete luck or Stephen is a much more insightful and empathic child than we even imagined. Because he sees that. Do you know what I mean? He obviously observes that more clearly than anyone. For the song lyrics to be that poignant. Either that or it's a massive coincidence, which I doubt, because the show's cleverer than that.
Or without being flippant, it's just a song. That's the other argument. I'm not saying that is my argument, but it's that weird thing where, although the songs are within the episode and being sung by the characters, they also go a bit into a wider narrative that aren't. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure we're meant to necessarily think that Stephen is literally playing these words to them. Does that make sense? So therefore, you could make it a wider.
They
thing.
do show him picking up the guitar and starting to sing. To be fair.
But is he then singing for the? Do you know if he's like, right, hold on, I'm going to pause this verse and I'm going to do this verse when we're out fishing tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the impression I always get when they do that is that like he played the whole song at the time, but then we as the audience.
Yes, and that's my impression too. That is
you're being
genuinely
devil's
my
advocate.
impression. I'm just presenting the other side.
Yeah. Genuinely one of my favorites. I think actually, if I was to be ranking episodes, this would somewhat be up there as well. I think this is a really really strong episode.
I agree. And certainly my favourite episode that doesn't, and I loved Lars and the Cool Kids, but I think this is my favourite episode that doesn't centre upon, my favourite episode that so heavily involves a character other than the main four.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'd put it above House Guest and stuff, and even some of the dad stuff.
Yeah, genuinely. And what baffles me is Lars is bizarrely a divisive character, I think. Amongst fans,
really?
Yeah, there's a little bit. There's Lars love and there's Lars hate. I think Lars is he splits people, and I think that's indicative of the duality of the character. If I'm being completely honest with you, I think people will see what they want to see in Lars because they'll either see the what he does and says, the more direct actions, and look at those and go, well, he's an arsehole. And you know what? Understandably so. He's sleeping on the job. Sadie's trying to do her work, and he's like, "Stop trying to do your job while I'm sleeping." I mean, if those aren't the words of a fucking arsehole, I don't know what is. But with that said, you then, if you're paying close attention, I'm not saying people who think otherwise aren't, but I'm saying like if you really want to read into his actions and his things, you see the conflict. You see the conflicted desires, and you see the good person that's inside actually creeping out in weird ways, and I think ultimately he is a better person than he presents, and again I think that is then reflected in the fan reception, because I think some people just go, well, you know what, even though he might at his deeper nature be a nicer person, he still acts like a prick all the time, so I don't like him. And that's a totally reasonable I would not disagree with anyone who says that. I find him quite charming, and I also enjoy him just on the basis of him being more interesting than a lot of the characters in this show. I think we need to also remember that it's not just about whether you personally like them or not, it's how much do they bring to the show. And so far, one of the more complex and interesting characters that's led to some of the more interesting episodes is Lars.
Yeah, I think the fact that he is a divisive character shows that he's a worthy character, because he wouldn't be being divisive means people have got an opinion on him. People having an opinion on him mean he's a layered, complex character.
Yes,
so
agreed. Especially
that's not no one could anyone making that criticism they can not like him maybe, but they can't say he's not a great character, because that's the point.
Yeah,
I think the only example of a character that has ever been so annoying that I've actively hated and not taken that into account is the woman, the lesbian in 13 Reasons Why. That character was so annoying.
What does she do? I can't remember.
The one that she lied about, like, kissing Hannah, and then even when everyone else was coming round and everyone else was being like, oh no, it's we probably should tell the truth. She was like, nope, she's lying.
She really stuck to her lies very adamantly.
She's the only example of a character that I know I'm meant to hate her, but I'm just like, nope. I feel about her the way people feel about Joffrey.
Can I play devil's advocate, Chris?
Yeah, of course.
She's like Lars, a character that's conflicted because, of course, she knows that admitting to any of those things would be admitting to her sexuality, therefore making her a layered character.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
Oh, so have we not put ourselves in the same situation here, where there's a character that clearly divisive? You did not like her at all, but maybe that's because they did a good job. Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Putting out there.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, also, I loved at the beginning when they first got back and Stephen warped. Amethyst's prank was amazing.
Yes.
When it cuts along and she's got a fly head. I forgot to mention it earlier, but yeah, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, very good.
Cool.
There we go.
Oh, one other thing. Sorry, one other thing. Just because this bothers me. They made it seem like this is the first time Stephen has warped. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm the warp master or whatever, and he's like, can I do it? Can I do it? Pretty sure we saw him do it 100 times on his own during House Guest when he had to keep going back to his dad. Just saying.
Oh yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
He's like, I did it, and it's like, yeah, like 2 weeks ago. Like, what's going on?
But maybe he was so preoccupied with his dad that he
Yeah.
didn't even have a chance to think about it.
I mean, I honestly, the way Cartoon Network treats the show, it would not at all surprise me if this episode was more directly supposed to follow. But then again, I
would be
love
because that episode starts with like
the leg being broken and the car being broken. Yeah. Maybe they
Cool.
just didn't think it through, or maybe this episode was supposed to come before Mirror Gem altogether.
Yeah, I was going to say that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
Cool.
That's everything for this week then, I guess. We'll be back
Yeah.
next week in a couple of days' time. I got to get used to that. It's really annoying because we have one podcast that's weekly. So I'm always used to going, we'll see you next week. You know, that's Fringe Observers. Then we have another podcast that's 2 weekly. So that always gets annoying because I say weekly. I always say next week, even though it's 2 weeks. And then this one's the reverse problem where I'm always saying next week when it's quicker than that. I'm never going to get it right, Chris. It's just not going to happen.
Destined not to.
So we'll see you in a couple of days when we discuss Keep Beach City Weird.